Welcome to the Bessemer in Lake Erie. I am Santa Fe Rail Guy, and this is the Conneaut Shuttle. I thought I mispronounced that for a minute there. So we're going to be taking a small ore train here from the Conneaut shipyards at the Lake Erie port, all the way to, I believe, Albinian Yard, which is about 12 miles, so it's not too bad. And looks like we're clear to go. So I'm going to put the reverser up, release the brakes. We're going to go steady forward. Now, it is very easy to get wheel slip here, so I'm going to put on a little bit of sand just to start out with. I'm going to ease up the regulator. Just a little bit at a time, because I don't want to get any wheel slip. Now this scenario is interesting because we're essentially going back in time. As you can see, this BL&E route is based off of what I'd say is the late 1930s, early 1940s. And, yeah, I like it. Unfortunately, if you're looking to buy this route in 2020, unfortunately, it's no longer available. G-Trax ran into some trouble with Canadian National, the current owners of the Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad, and they have to get that work out, which they said they would. So this route should be available again at some point, once all the legal details are worked out. And it is a shame. I would like to see them do a modern version of this route. Part of the scenarios on this route is you have to use your whistle when going through crossings or you will be penalized. That's actually a first for me in this game. I haven't actually seen that be enforced strictly in scenarios. I always do it anyway out of instinct, but this is one of the first times that I recall it being mandatory. Alright, doing okay. Put on bell. And you can see by the age of the cars and trucks, we are certainly not in the 21st century anymore, which I think is awesome. Alright, we're accelerating pretty good out here. Turn that bell off. That's one thing I almost always forget to do. Go through this short tunnel here. Here we are. Put the regulator down just because you can see some of the rough ride there. If you've got a heavy train, a rough ride. But from here on out, we can pretty much cruise it at 50. I'll try to get somewhere up there. Oh, there's the wheel slip. Gosh dang it. Hopefully that's the only wheel slip we get. So this is a 210-2, also known as a Santa Fe type, as we've got 2 pilot wheels, 10 drivers, and 2 training wheels, and an awesome Vanderbilt tender. Oh, that trestle's in the way. For those who think, why does that eye in the Bessemer logo look weird? Well, rail fans already know the answer. But for all the non-rail fans, What you are looking at is not in fact an eye, although it works as an eye, which is why it's in there. It is actually a track. The beam for a railroad track. If you were to look at a railroad track on its edges, as it's cut in half, that's what it looks like. A steel beam with a special top. Almost forgot to whistle there. So that's pretty cool. And it's actually very common amongst many railroads in the United States. And possibly elsewhere. Never mind the track squeal, that's just in the corners. Has a very different track squeal from a lot of the other routes, for some reason. Slowly put the reverser up. We should see about 2 other trains on this route, and on this specific scenario. Now we're cooking. 31 miles an hour. My steam pressure is up really, really high, but that's because I'm trying to really build up speed. Alright, I could probably turn the sand off now. Oh, no, I can't. Uh-huh. Okay. Here's hoping I don't run out of sand. I don't know if that's possible. Alright, here's our first meet. Another ore train by the looks of it. And it disappeared. Ghost ore train, that's a first. Okay. So that happened. So you gotta keep your eye open for these whistle post signs to know when to whistle. And it is important because, keep in mind, this is far before you have modern railroad crossing gates. The most modern thing you have is the wigwag, which really isn't very modern. But it's the most technical warning that somebody could get at this period in time. Now we're picking up some decent speed. I'm going to lower this. I'm going to lower this. I'm going to turn off the sand. Just keep whistling through it. Alright, there we go. That's a good acceleration climb. Just wanted to set it so that it wouldn't slip, because what ends up happening with wheel slip is it can't find grip on the rails. And that's from applying too much power to the drivers. So you want to apply it gradually and use sand to try to find a grip combination. Of course, I have a feeling that in the comments somebody's going to be like, well, actually, you know, this is the process of what's happening when a wheel slip occurs. Look, that's the best definition I can think of for non-rail fans, okay? Is it 100% technically accurate? but it makes the most sense. The shadow work, this entire route is gorgeous. I love it, and that's why I'd like a modern version. If it does get re-released by G-Tracks, I would love to have a modern version where you can operate the tunnel motor SD40-2Ts, the SD38s, and all these other locomotives. I think that would be really, really cool. So we're not quite at 50 yet, we're about 3 away. But once I get to that point, I'm gonna go down on the throttle a little bit, just so I don't get any speeding penalties. You can see I already lost a lot of points due to all that wheel slip. I love the animation on the rods on the driving wheels. It's just so seamless. And this is a big locomotive too. 210-2 isn't a slouch. It's strong. You can see why they use these primarily to haul ore. And this isn't even a long ore train. This is about... It's actually pretty small. It's not fully loaded either. I think it's iron ore, but I'm not sure. Alright, I'm at 50. Time to slow her down. There we go. And turning off that bell. And here's the second train. Now, hopefully this one doesn't disappear due to any sort of glitching. I'll put the camera view on this side. Another Santa Fe. A little intermoto. I'm actually doing really good on saving water and coal. I used a lot more water the first time I did this. Coming up to another crossing here. We're only 7 miles out. So we may be able to finish this in one take. Sometimes if it's a long run, I like to split it up so you guys don't have to sit through as much. But this one I should make it to the yard in fairly good time. Gosh, what a different time this must have been. And how much the landscape must have changed. I mean, this is probably loosely based on what little information that the team had about the route during this era. Or route, depending on where you come from. Alright, notch up just a little bit so I can keep some momentum going. It's very easy when I'm doing these commentaries to get distracted, as you can plainly tell. I try not to, but it is what it is. Hey, let's do a pass-by cam real quick. Not an overhead. There we go. Number 8. That looks cool. Nice screenshot. You guys can see the length of the train. See, not very long. Not very long. I don't think there's a crossing here. I just whistle because it's a station. I feel like it's what I would do if I was an engineer. You see those old-fashioned signals? I forget their name. But they're really cool. The way they sort of turn, they have a more mechanical look about them than just a light. Alright, we're about 5 miles out. We're up to 15 minutes. Probably going to be 20 minutes or a little bit over, which I'm okay with that. You see, we can hold 20 tons of coal. And I forget how many gallons of water. Or if it even says. 10,000, okay. So yeah, we're not doing bad at all. I would say one back and forth run, we'd probably need to get some water and coal. If we were really pushing it, but it also depends. I don't think this yard coming up has a water tower. It might, but I didn't take much time to look around when I got here. Show you the interior view. Now don't worry, that seat is not technically empty. We do have a fireman. I just set it to automatic fireman. And this is our side. And this is how it would look in real life. Yeah, operating a steam locomotive was hard back in the day because visibility wasn't exactly brilliant. You spent half the time with your head out the window and the other half looking at your gauges. It was not easy. You had to work really well with your firemen. It took a team to get a train going, stopped, and where it needs to be. Much like it does today. Of course, today's railroading has its own challenges and technicalities, but back then you had a little bit more to worry about. Alright, we're coming in close to the yard. I'm just going to drop down a little bit. Again, I have to apologize for some of the stuttering. That's not my recording software. That's the game. I'm actually running this at the lowest settings possible, but still HD, so you guys can have a good, clear picture of what's going on. Also, you can look behind us. You see, the train's not very long. If you can see the caboose, then you know your train's not very long. If it was any longer, we'd probably need 2 locomotives just for the added horsepower. Is this a crossing? Yes, it is. And I do like this view because it's very realistic. I feel like when you're really cruising, then this is the view you're going to spend the most time in. Oh, hey, that crossing at a gate. Huh. Again, I don't know specifically which time period this is set in, if it's the 1930s or 40s. Judging by the cars, I would say it's late 30s, early 40s. It definitely seems to be pre-war. By pre-war, I mean World War II. Could very well be Depression era. Anywhere in between. Notch up just a little bit because we're not quite there yet. Well, actually, no, I'm going to start notching down just because we're about a mile out. And once we get to the yard, we'll have to slow down to 30 and then sharply to 15 once we actually get into the yard. Gosh, railroading was so cool back in the day. It still is cool. But there's something lost in modern railroading. There's great safety achievements, which I always take the time to praise because, I mean, railroad fatalities are just tragic and really just terrible. And there have been far less of them. And when I say railroad fatalities, I'm not counting people who are hit by trains so much as trains derailing and killing the crew. I feel like the number of people dying to trains on the tracks has remained mostly the same over the years. Probably less so. But it's still, unfortunately, a very tragic thing. I know a lot of people don't like to think about that aspect of working on the railroad as an engineer or conductor and not being able to do much because suicide by train is, unfortunately, it's very common, and in a lot of cases people just don't hear it coming. They're blasting music. And a lot of people go, well, how can somebody not hear a train coming? How can they not feel the ground shake? Well, that's a good question. I wish I knew the answer, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't. Alright, now I'm going to start applying a little bit of brake here. As we get closer and closer to the yard. Can you imagine these days, though, how much you had to be concerned about people on the side of the tracks and people on the tracks? And rules were a lot less stringent back then. The FRA really wasn't as strict. In fact, a lot of regulation is what killed a lot of the major North American railroads, depending on who you ask. It was a multitude of reasons, but I think a lot of it had to do with regulation, for sure. Alright, into the yard we go. We've had to B-yard siding, and then I'll couple all the ore cars and caboose. Now see, when that message first popped up when I did this scenario, I freaked out because I thought I had jumped the rail and derailed. I think I was going too fast. But no. Alrighty. Coming into the yard. Nice and slow here. Now see, this is the part I find the most challenging, is slowing down a steam train. It's a lot harder to do. You see, you got a switcher in the yard, a couple cabooses, a couple ore cars, ore hoppers. A couple gondolas there with what look to be either concrete or... yeah, I'd say that's concrete. We'll see once we get up the siding a little bit more, because I'm going to pull up quite a bit before we actually stop. Oh no, it looks like a mix of things. It looks like some milk jugs, some boxes. Yeah. Maybe it's supposed to be garbage, I don't know. And a little 060 switcher. sitting there. There are a couple scenarios where we can do some switch work with those. Let me know if you want to see them. I've never really done them before, so I'd have to have some practice ahead of time. Some coal in these hoppers over here, and we're sort of chugging along right here with the frame rate because the game has to render a little bit more in the yard. Alright, I think that's far enough. Alright, here we are. Now on couple. Beautiful. The yard switcher will later assemble the two halves of this ore shipment, which is destined for steel mills in Pittsburgh. Scenario continues in part 3. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you for taking this little journey with me. And I assume that the rest of it is in this car right over to the left of us. So, cool. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. God bless, have a good one. Peace.